Hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Mohan and I welcome you all to today's webinar. And in today's webinar, we are going to learn how to use Kredily's payroll module. We are actually going to learn the entire process of setting up, um, adding all the details, your PFESI, and then processing payroll and then generating payslip. We are going to learn all of these things in today's webinar. And before we start, I would request all of you to download Kredily's mobile application from the Play Store if you have not downloaded yet, because you will be able to do almost everything that I'm going to explain to you in this webinar in your mobile app itself, and it comes in very handy. So please download Kredily's mobile app from the Play Store. With that being said, let's start the webinar. I hope all of you are able to see the screen, and if you have any questions with regards to any of the topics that I'm going to cover in this webinar, please write your questions in the chat section and I will take up all your questions towards the end of this webinar. You can also connect with us. I'll be sharing my details. So let's start the webinar. As we are going to focus more about payroll, I'm going to straight away dive into the payroll module. So the payroll is one of the modules which is shown in the dashboard itself. So I'm going to show you the entire advanced setup of payroll. For that, we need to click on the advanced settings option. This is where you will define all of your settings, including your statutory settings in Kredily. I'm sure you must be following a certain settings right now. You can define all of those here. So the first thing is your payroll setting. Here is where you will define the basic stuff like pay frequency, pay cycle, pay date, and date of joining cutoff, and your payday calculation. Should you include weekly offs or not? Holidays, should you include or not? And should you display the tax projection and tax computation to your employees or not? These are all just basic stuff, yes or no stuff. You can turn it on or turn it off according to your preference. The next option is your PF and ESI settings. This is very important. You can turn it on if you have PF and ESI in your organization. Otherwise, you can turn it off. And in Kredily, you can define PF as per what you are following or as per what you're deducting right now at your organization. And the system is very robust in that term. If you turn it on, you can make settings like how much should the PF deduction be? Should it be a 12% on the basic salary? Should it be 12% on the entire gross salary except HRA? Should it be just sorry about that. Should it just be a fixed amount of 21,000 or 25,000, or should you add a customized formula to deduct PF? Whatever you follow in your organization as PF can be defined in Kredily, and the same will be defined, or same by default will be taken as your employer's PF contribution as well. And you can enable your statutory ceiling, which means no matter how much your basic salary or your gross salary gets to, your PF will always be 1,800 rupees per month. And you can make it as a loss of pay dependent component or loss of pay independent component. And individual override, it's just a toggle. If you enable this, you will get an option to make changes to a particular employee's PF contribution. And you can include the PF admin charges in the employee's CTC itself. You can include or exclude as per your preference. And then we have our ESI settings as well. There's nothing much to play around in ESI settings. It's a standard 0.75% of gross salary for an employee and 3.25% of gross salary for an employer if the gross salary is below 21,000 a month. And this is defined in the system by default, and you can just turn on ESI or turn it off as per your preference. And once it is done, you can go to overview to see how much or which of your employees are getting PF and which of your employees are not getting PF, and the same with ESI. And if you want to make changes at an individual level, you can click on edit button, make whatever changes you want to make. You want to override PF to a flat value, you can do that. Add your PF number, UAN number, EPS number, ESI number, everything can be added. You can even import this in bulk by clicking on the import button. No matter what details you're adding in Kredily, you will always have a bulk add option. Please look out for this option in every tab. Import and export are always present in most of the tabs where you will be adding information to the system. Please look out for this option and you can add details in bulk. And the next option is your PT settings. This is just a yes or no toggle. I would say you don't have to remember how much PT should be deducted to your employees as per the state. System will understand. Just make sure that you're adding the work location of your employee in the system so that system will calculate PT accordingly. Then we have declaration settings. This is where you will define or add a window and enable declarations for your employees. You can either set it as monthly or yearly. I have set it as yearly and I've set the window to be 1st of April 2022 to 21st of March 2023, and I've applied it to all employees. You can also apply it only to selected employees if you want by typing the name, but let's apply it to all employees because we wouldn't know who's going to get to a taxable income in the financial year. And then you have your components. This is where you will create all sorts of components. You can create, so first of all, there is base components which cannot be changed. These are the components which are going to be there in every salary structure. So you cannot make changes to these components. Yes, you can change the definition. You can choose the definition of these components, and you can also change the name of special allowance if you want, but you cannot get rid of these components. Any structure should have these components in it. And then you have recurring components. These are the components which can be defined as per your preference. We have already added many components which are by default used by most of the organizations in India. But if you want to create more components, you can always click on the create component button and create any component you want. Or if you want to edit the existing component, you can just create, you can just click on the component's name and you can edit the component's definition. For example, if I want to edit medical allowance, just click on it. You can even change the name. You can change the type of the component if it has to be an allowance, deduction, reimbursement, or contribution. And you can include this component in CTC or exclude it from CTC. If you need proof, you can turn it on. If you do not need, turn it off. Should this component be taxable? Allowances are 100% taxable, and if you don't want it to be taxable, you can turn it off. You can override this component at an individual level. You can set this component to be an LOP dependent or independent component as per your preference. Now, how much value do you want to add to this component is something that you can define in a very robust manner. If you want this component's value to be a flat value, you can choose the flat option in the calculation type and enter whatever value you want to enter. Remember that this is always an annual amount. So do not add monthly amount here, always add annual amount. 15,000, 20,000, whatever amount you want to add, you can just put the value if it is a fixed value. Or if it is based on a formula, you can even type a formula here. For example, I'm typing it as 10% of CTC, 10%, 20%, 30%. You can define the formula as per your preference. Or if you want this to be a slab-wise calculation, you can define the slab as well. For example, if the salary is between 0 to 3 lakhs, I want this component value to be 10,000. If the salary is between 3 lakhs to 5 lakhs, I want this component value to be 20,000. So like this, you can create multiple slabs. There is no limitation on that, and define the component. And same goes with your variable components as well. The only difference here is that this component is not a recurring component, not necessarily a recurring component. It could be, but not necessarily. Variable, like the name itself says, it varies every month, or it could even not be there on a monthly basis at times. For example, your annual bonus is not recurring, it is once a year. Your half yearly bonus, that is twice a year. And your festive bonus, like Diwali bonus or Christmas bonus or Eid bonus, that's always again once a year. So these kind of components are always added in variable components. The only difference is that you will add the pay frequency and the due date. So which month do you want to give this component to your employees. So I'm putting this as annual bonus and I'm giving this in the month of August. And do you want this to be included in CTC? It's just toggle. You want this to be taxable? That is also a toggle, but if you make it a taxable component, you can choose if the tax has to be deducted one time on that particular month, or you want this to be distributed across the financial year, the rest of the financial year. Again, calculation type, it can be flat or it can be slab according to your preference. Then comes your ad hoc component. Ad hoc components are always out of the box components, which is not defined in the structure. You can add ad hoc earnings or ad hoc deductions. I'll just add one of the components, just put the name. I'll say random allowance, just for the sake of showing this to you. I'm adding a name called random allowance. It will be taxable. If you want, you can turn it off. Should this be included in ESI? Yes, it should be. Save it. And you can create the same as a deduction as well. Random deduction. Should this be removed from the taxable income? Yes, it should be. You can keep it off if you want. And save it. And once this is done, you're sorted for the components. With the components, you don't have to do anything else apart from these. The next option in your advanced settings is your payout settings. This is where you will add your bank details, your employees' bank details. You can click on edit and add the bank details, or you can just bulk import as well by clicking on the import button. Then we have a few formats of payslips that's available in Kredily. You can choose the one that suits the best as per your components. Then we have bank integration. We have two different types of integrations that can be done. One is the KredPay, which is one of the virtual wallets created by Kredily, and this is one of the coolest feature that any HRMS has ever introduced, I would say. You can directly do the payout to your employees from Kredily itself, and you don't even have to have a specific corporate bank account to do that. Kredily will give you a virtual banking account from Kredily. This actually belongs to an ICICI bank, basically an ICICI bank account. You can transfer funds to this account from any of your bank accounts, then do the salary transfer from Kredily itself. And it's a standard NEFT transaction, no special conditions or special constraints applied to it. If you want to know more information about it, please feel free to contact us. I'll be sharing my contact details towards the end of the webinar. And once this is done, forgot to inform, we also have an ICICI bank integration. If you are using ICICI's corporate account, you can directly integrate that with Kredily. Again, please do connect with us if you want more information and assistance on that. So the next option is your setup payroll. Here, the only thing that I will be doing is to gather all the components that I've created and create a structure. You can create any number of structures. There is no limitations on it. We have actually created a couple of structures, which is a standard structure used by most of the organizations. But if you want to create a new one, you can always click on create new structure and create. You can either create a regular structure for your full-time employees or a contract structure for your contract employees or part-time employees. You can even use the contract structure for your freelancers or interns. So now, I have created a lot of structures. So let me just take one of those to explain how to create structures. So now I just created this one. So now if I have to add components or change the definition of components, I click on the edit button. I'm going to make basic as 50% of CTC. You can put your preferable formula here. In HR as 40% of basic. You can change this as well. And if you want to add more components, click on add component and add whatever components that's needed. I'll add vehicle allowance, I'll add phone reimbursement, and I'll add gratuity and save this. So my structure is saved. Now if you want to assign the structure, go to assign structure, select your employee and assign the structure to this employee from whichever effective date, from what whatever date you want this to be effective from, and apply. You can assign the structures to your employees by selecting them individually, or you can select all of them in one shot, or you can filter according to the location or according to the designation and then assign the structure. Once the structure is assigned, the last thing is to run payroll. And to run payroll, system will show you all the details that you need to know before processing payroll. For example, your attendance and leave information will be shown by the system. How many of your employees have not logged in? How many are absent? How many are present? And for how many days they are absent? All of these information will be shown, and the number of loss of pay will also be shown to you before you process payroll. If you want to make any changes, you can make the changes from right here. And the same goes with your leave related information as well. It will show how many employees have applied for a leave, how many are approved, how many are rejected, how many are pending. That information will be shown to you. And salary revision information, if you have revised anybody's salary, system will show you that that employee salary has been revised. If in case you want to make changes to the salary revision before processing payroll, you can do that. And system will show how many employees will be getting a variable salary component if there are any variable salary components for the particular month. In the month of March, there are no variable components, so it's not showing anything. It will also give you an option to add ad hoc components. If you want to add an ad hoc component, click on add employee, choose the employee here, and select the component. I'm going to say random allowance, and the value of this component is 1000 rupees, and save it. You can do the same for deductions as well. You can add as many as employees you want. You can do it in bulk as well by clicking on the import button. You download an Excel sheet and upload it in bulk. And you can hold your employee's salary as well. I've already held Manoj's salary. If you want to hold employee's salary, click on add employee, add your employee, change the status to on hold and save it. I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to add. If you want to then change the on hold status to paid, you can click on edit and you can change the status from on hold to paid. You can also override your taxes, your income tax and professional tax, but I would say it's not needed because Kredily automatically deducts or calculates income tax and professional tax by itself, so you really don't have to do anything about it. Given that your employees are doing their declarations right and you're approving them on time, the income tax and professional tax will be calculated appropriately, accurately, and system will deduct the same automatically before the payroll is processed. But still, if you want to make any changes to it, you can always click on the edit button and make the changes to both income tax and professional tax. Once that is done, you're all sorted. You can click on the pay register, select your employees and run the payroll. I'm only going to process payroll for one employee. You can also process payroll in batches. That means you can process payroll for a set of employees today, come back tomorrow and process payroll for the second batch, come back after 2 days again, process payroll for the third batch. So you can do this in batches. So there is no particular condition there is no particular order. You can just select your employees randomly, or you can select your employees as per the department or location. You can, as per the location, you can select them and do the payroll processing or do the payout. I'm only going to select one employee and run payroll for him. Payroll is processed. Now I will also generate payslips for this one employee. Payslip is also generated. This blue color symbol or icon towards the right side indicates that the payslip has been generated and has been sent to your employee through an SMS. So your employees will get an option to log into Kredily and download it from Kredily. This is it, and once the payroll is processed, you can also do the payout by going to the payout option, select your employees and hit the payout button. That's it. So the payout will also be processed. This would mostly take about 2 minutes to do the processing. most of the times, unless there is no serious bank issues that's going on, or if you're not doing the payout after the NEFT timings, there shouldn't be any problem, and it should mostly be instant or spontaneous. But otherwise, sometimes it could take a few minutes, but the process will be smooth and instant. And after that, you can also download your statutory reports. You can download your PFECR, your consolidated reconciliation report, consolidated net pay, consolidated gross versus consolidated net pay report. All sorts of report can be downloaded from statutory and reports. This can also be directly submitted while you're doing the filing, your PFECR filing. You can upload the file directly to your PF website without doing any modifications to it. Just download it from here and upload it in your PF website. So that's pretty much it. That's the entire process. If you have any questions with regards to any of this things that I've explained to you today about the payroll module, you can type in your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them.